Our next guest is the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine with specific responsibility for the EU and Euro-Atlantic integration. It's Olha Stefanishyna, and she is going to be joining us from video. I hope she'll be up on the screen in a second. We have only 10 minutes for the interview, so we'll be diving straight into it. Olha, welcome to Copenhagen.
My pleasure. Hello, colleagues. I'd love to have a very intensive discussion on the issues pending.
Well, let's dive straight into it. Ukraine has been subject to a century or more of intimidation by Russia and the Russian state. We're all very aware of the occupation of Crimea, and we're also now very conscious of the fact that the biggest military buildup since 2014 is occurring on your border. Can you give us your current threat assessment? What is the situation right now on the border, and how worried are you about it?
Well, thank you so much. Whatever situation we see, whether it's the recent escalation and concentration of more than 140,000 troops over the border with the Donetsk and Lugansk regions and Crimea, or its withdrawal of troops. So these are the ordinary practice of Russian Federation, and we're really happy that this withdrawal has happened to be possible, not only because of Ukraine's efforts, but because of increased international mobilization of all the principal players, including transatlantic ones, showing that the price of any escalation for Russia would be as high as possible. So, of course, this is a very crucial situation which has shown and proven that Ukraine is 24/7 ready to stand not only for its territorial integrity and sovereignty, but also for the democracy and the freedom of the choice of our people to be preserved and saved. So, but basically, returning to the issue, I'd like to stress that even it's now for more than 7 years that people of Ukraine are fighting not only for the sovereignty and territorial integrity, and not fighting only with Russian Federation, but also this is the fight for the right to live in a democracy. This year we mark really 30 years of independence of Ukraine, which was obtained shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And these are the 3 decades which have revealed in the strong commitment of Ukrainians to democracy, freedom, human rights, their commitment to live in a democratic European state. This commitment was a driver behind the revolution, the Euromaidan, which helps us to withstand Russian military aggression, constant hybrid attacks, and proceed with the difficult structural reforms. And these have paved the way towards the democratic transformations which our country is going through, which are tremendously complicated because it requires to preserve the high level of public discourse on the very essential economic, political, and humanitarian transformations taking place in our country. Of course, Russia is one of the issues which are highly discussed now on the agenda, not only because of the escalation on the Donbas, but because the whole world, the whole democratic world, is expected to show that there is a Marshall Plan for the democratic development. While Russia shows that there is a Marshall Plan, it shows that no will and readiness to de-escalate not only the situation in Ukraine, but anyhow try to build the bridges with the democratic world, including the ones facilitating the economic development.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a little bit about...
Russia has significantly reinforced combat capabilities in its occupation forces in Donbas. Currently, these formulations consist of 28,000 of servicemen and more than 2,080 regular members of the Russian armed forces around and in the territory of Ukraine. Even before the recent escalation, the number of Russian troops along the state border in the temporarily occupied territories was extremely high. So this is a permanently existing situation at our border. The access of the Red Cross as well as the UN representatives to the occupied parts of the Donbas is regularly obstructed. And it's important that it's not only Ukraine, but the whole set of democratic countries around the border with Ukraine, but also across the transatlantic, are clearly state that everybody see that it is Russia who escalates the situation. It is Russian armed forces who are backed up on the territory of the Donbas, of the Donetsk and Lugansk region of Ukraine. So we should not really forget also that Crimea remains not only occupied by the Russian Federation, but it has been a permanently developed military base of Russian Federation, and we see that the security in the Black Sea and Azov Sea regions becomes a very important issue, not only within Ukrainian discourse, but also in terms of the transatlantic and NATO discourse. And we hope that the NATO will deliver a new strategy for the Black Sea region security, which is really important to not only for the NATO countries, for the South flank, but also for the countries out of the NATO, like Ukraine and Georgia. So it's very important that let's say at this moment there is international unity to make sure that Russia is not going any further in terms of its hybrid and military warfare. But also what is important for us back in Kiev, what is expected to see that the democratic world has a master plan of its development, that European Union finally shows its determination to be a player and a global player across the continent. And of course, we are waiting to see this Marshall Plan in the upcoming NATO 2030 strategy, but also in a strategy for further development of relations between European Union and Eastern Europe, including Ukraine. And hopefully this would be the best response to the Russia aggressive actions, the unity, the transatlantic unity, the unity
so
not
in
only
concrete
in the face
terms,
of
if I can
crisis,
interrupt you, Deputy Prime Minister, in concrete terms,
affected by Russian aggressive actions, but also in the face of the strategic vision of development of the continent and the transatlantic union.
In concrete terms, what exactly would you like the EU and NATO to be doing? Like, clearly you would like them to present a united front, but what is it they're not doing now that you need from them?
They're part of the agenda which has been partially implemented. This is the discourse on the Black Sea security and the NATO strategy and policy in terms of ensuring presence, military presence in the Black Sea, and ensuring that there is a security strategy for a Black Sea region as a whole. This is the discourse which has already taken place in NATO, but also it is very important that such countries as Ukraine see the clarity in terms of the further materialization of the open door policy. As you know, back in 2008, Ukraine and Georgia were confirmed to be one of the NATO member states in some of the future. And now, 13 years after the Bucharest summit, we're still striving to find this unity, and the discourse among the allies shows that still in the question of the open door policy, Russia has a vote inside of the NATO. So for us, it's very important that the alliance would finally give the answers towards those countries who are aspiring a closer partnership with the alliance, who are willing to concentrate its reforms based on the membership action plans. And we hope to see these answers and see this strategy in the NATO 2030 strategy. But when it comes to the European Union, for us, it's also very important that the neighborhood policy in 2022 will be revised for the Eastern European countries, which are not yet members of the European Union, as it was done for the countries of Mediterranean. And we think that it is the obvious reality, all of us waiting, because Ukraine has been implementing the association agreement for 5 years now, and basically we need to understand what comes further when Ukrainian legislation is aligned, when the markets are ready to get integrated with the EU ones. So it's time for political association, and it's time for understanding what comes in the next 10 years for our region.
It's a very clear message, Madam Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you sticking with us to be able to give those thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.